Hello, Professor. My name is Rukmanten. Today I'm going to present a presentation with my teammates, and we are presenting from the group F. Rukmanten, Dave Karoon, Jaskriat Singh Panu, Navjot Singh, and Navakas Deep Singh. So we are going to present a presentation on the REC tender error case, a legal analysis, exploring the bending nature of the contract as a tendency. Is presented by Salim Varisaram, Institution of the Wisdom, Student Law Society on December 24th, 2024. So we have taken reference from this from the case studies which help us to make this presentation more elaborative, and apart from them to clear our things to present our presentation very carefully. On Engineering and Construction Eastern Limited Company. The case was happened in 1979. The jurisdiction was added as a Supreme Court of Canada, and the parties involved was the plaintiff, Ron Engineering and the Constructions, and the defendant was Ontario Crown. So let me give you a quick introduction about the case. The Ron case R versus the Ron Engineering serves as a pivotal moment in the Canadian contract law. Partially in the context of the tendencing processes, the case was highlighted of the significance of the clear contractual obligations and uh, re-violations of the tenders once submitted. Understanding in this case it's essential for the comprehensive. The principles was governing a tenders contracts as it was established by the legal framework and how the bids and tenders are treated when the contracts happen and the contractual obligation begins. By analyzing the case, we can begin to valuable insight into the responsibilities and risk involved in tender submissions and the legal consequences of the errors such as high strikes agreements. So the next slide is case. Tender submission. Ron Engineering Construction means REC Construction submission of the tender for the construction project. Deposit REC provided for almost around $150,000 deposit as a required of the tender submissions. Miscalculations. So REC almost omitted $750,000 in the bin calculation, leading to an unusual low bins. The result: the Ontario government accepted REC bins unaware of the mistakes at the time of the submission. So it also tells us the next slide will be discussed by my partners. Thank you.
Hi, good morning, everyone. The next part is do contract analysis in tendering. So, first point is contract A. The tendering agreement that arises with the submission of tender. It deals with the orderly conduct of the tender process and principles of fairness and openness, equal treatment, prohibition, and unreasonable withdrawal or modification. It's a pre-contractual agreement which may be enforced if it's broken. Contract B. The formal contract resulting, if successful, from the tender. This is the one that will regulate the effective execution of the project, establishing terms such as price, scope, and deadlines. It shall become binding only when the tender has been chosen and both parties agree the content. Court approach. The court addressed that these are two individual stages. Contract A gives enforceability to the rules of the tender process, and contract B is the conclude agreement once the tender is awarded. Next is contract A, invitation to tender. Unilateral contract. A contract such as contract A is unilateral contract upon a party submission of a tender in response to call for tenders. For example, a request for tender. A tenderer in this instance is said to have made an offer to bound upon the terms of the tendering process once their respective bid is accepted. The offer is unrelated because it only binds the tenderer, not the issuer, until such time as the offer is accepted. Irrevocability upon submission. Once the tender is submitted, contract A is usually considered irrevocable. The tender cannot withdraw or change their offer unless a breach has occurred in the tendering process. A specific condition allows him to do so. This irrevocability keeps the integrity of the tender process open and protects the parties from unfair manipulations. Authority to withhold deposit. Many tendering processes involve the deposit to be taken at the time of the tender submission in cases where the tender process requirements are not met, which includes but in not limited to tenderer withdrawal, failure to follow instructions, and or a breach in terms their deposit is to be withheld by issuer as a permanently against a non-compliance with the tender rules to ensure compliance by the tenderer to terms of contract A. Next is Contract B Construction Agreement. Explanation. Contract B refers to the formal agreement that takes effect upon awarding the tender. It states the term of on the actual scope of the work to be performed, price deadline, and quality requirements thereof. It governs the execution of the project after the tender process. Condition of enforcement. Contract B takes effect when the tender is chosen and both parties accept the contract terms. The conditions of the tender are met when the tender is successful, which means the successful award and acceptance of the bid are legally binding. Breach consequences. A contractor RE and C may be taken to court for the breach of contract concerning non-performance of the work, such as delay, incomplete performance, or inferior work. Depending on the nature of the breach, this may come with penalties, damages, or termination of the contract. Thank you. Next part will be explained by my other teammate.
Hi everyone, my name is Navakash Deep Singh. So here I would like to describe the facts of the case. In this case, RE and C submitted a tender for a government project including a mandatory $150,000 deposit. However, an error occurred during their bid calculation. A critical amount of $750,000 was accidentally omitted, significantly lowering their proposed price. Despite the error, RE&C's bid was accepted because it was the lowest. However, after the submission, RE&C realized their mistake and requested an amendment to their tender. Unfortunately, the Ontario government refused to allow any changes or withdrawal of the bid. So there are some issues in question. This leads to the core legal issue: is RE and C by contract A the agreement governing the call for tenders? The case also raises some important questions about the irrevocability of tenders. Should an accidentally omission bind a company to potentially significant financial losses?
Hello everyone, I am Navjot Singh. Let's start with slide 10 where we look at RE and C's argument in the case. First, RE and C said it was an honest mistake. They admitted that they made a mistake in their bid by leaving out $750,000. They claimed it was an honest error and that they didn't mean to make this mistake. Moving towards the next, RENC asked for a chance to fix the mistake. They wanted to be allowed to change their bid or even withdraw it. RENC felt that because the error was unintentional, they should be given some flexibility. Finally, RENC argued that contract A should allow for a change. They believed that if someone made an honest mistake, the rules of the tender contract A should let them correct or withdraw the bid. They felt it would be unfair to make them stick to the original bid when it was a mistake. Thank you. Now let's move on to slide 11, where we'll go over the court's analysis of RENC's argument. The court focused on the irrevocability of Contract A. It said that one of the key points of Contract A is that once a bid is submitted, it cannot be changed or withdrawn. The court felt that this rule is important to keep the bidding process fair and clean for everyone involved. Next, the court explained that Contract A becomes binding as soon as the bid is submitted. Once RENC handed in their bid, they agreed to the rules of the tender and the contract became legally binding. This means RENC could simply change their mind later and withdraw the bid. Finally, the court explained why RENC's deposit was not going to be returned. The deposit, which was $150,000, was part of the tender rules since RENC failed to perform as agreed. The court said that the owner could keep the deposit as a result, allowing RENC to change their bid would go against the fairness of the tendering process. Thank you. Now let's look at slide 12, which covers the final holding or the decision made by the Supreme Court of Canada. First, the Supreme Court agreed with the lower courts. The court confirmed that the rules about irrevocable bids were clear and had to be followed. Second, the court confirmed that the $150,000 deposit was forfeited. The deposit stayed with the owner because the terms of the tender contract A were not followed. The court found no reason to return the deposit to RENC. Finally, RENC's appeal was dismissed. RENC asked the court to return the deposit, but the Supreme Court rejected their request. This decision made it clear that once a bid is submitted, the rules must be followed and bidders can't just change their minds later. This case is important because it shows how serious the rules of the tendering process are, and it sets a strong example about the importance of keeping contracts fair and predictable. That's the end of the presentation. Thank you for listening, and I am happy to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Slide 13, Legal Principle. The Ron Engineering case introduced a key legal principle. Submitting a bid creates a binding contract called Contract A. Once you have submitted your bid, you can take it back. It's legally blocked in. If the bid is accepted, it leads to Contract B, where both parties must follow through with the terms of the project. This case also clarified that bidding is a serious unilateral commitment. It's not just a proposal, but a promise. Why this case is important? This case is important because it's it changed tendering law by creating the two contract rule, one for bidding process, contract A, and the other, and one for the project itself, contract B. It's now a precedent in industries like constructions where competitive bidding is common. The decision emphasized that submitting a bid is irrevocable commitment, ensuring fairness and accountability in tendering processes. So, to wrap it up, the Ron Engineering case taught us that submitting a bid means making a legal promise. Once accepted, both parties are obligated to deliver. The case sets the foundation for fairness in tendering and is still a key reference for deputies today. It's a landmark decision that continues to shape how tendering is done. Thank you.